the uniform, past, present, and possibly future. I'm recruiting. It's a great opportunity for our veterans and our community to get together, and that's certainly demonstrated here by all of you that are here today. I see so many faces from our community that support us in so many ways with their time, talent, and treasure. Most recently, Judge Gillis, thank you for starting the Veterans Court here in Dublin. So it takes all of us working together to make sure our veterans get the care and services that they have earned through their sacrifice and through that of their families. No military man or woman is successful and able to follow the commitment they have made to their country without the very, very important love and support of their families. So please, let's just take a minute to recognize families, because without them, the service members would not be successful. Introduce our guest, I would be remiss if I did not take a moment to just sort of call to your attention some of the successes that we here at the Carl Vinson VA Medical Center have enjoyed over the past year, and more importantly, the services that we've provided to our veterans. Each of us that work here are very, very proud and committed to our mission, and that is to honor those who served. We increased our access by 12% this past year. We saw more than 12% more appointments. That's thousands and thousands of appointments, 94% of which were within 30 days. That's a huge improvement for us over the past several years. Our satisfaction has slowly gone up, and we've started a campaign, which many of you may have already heard. We want to be a 10. And if we're not a 10, we want to know why. So you'll be hearing that if you haven't already, and we want your open and honest opinion. In our ever pursuit of excellence, we have partnered with more than 30 academic institutions in the Georgia area, and even some out of state, to bring students in a variety of healthcare disciplines to work here, to practice here, to train here, and hopefully to work here. And that will include medical students and residents in this next 12 months. And then finally, our fourth mission, which many of you don't know that we do, that is sort of a participant on the national stage in responses to disaster. And as many of you know, Hurricane Matthew did a good number on many states on the eastern seaboard, and we were able to take evacuated patients from Charleston, evacuated patients that we served that live near the coast, and over 120 veterans and their families that had to move away from the coast to be safe. And we housed them here in the auditorium and in some of our wings for almost 7 days. So we're very proud of that, and it just demonstrates, I think, our commitment to what we do each and every day for our veterans that we proudly serve. So let's give a brief moment of applause to the men and women that serve these veterans every single day. That's Team Carl. And now it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Lieutenant Colonel Brian Green, who entered the Army as a private E1 in February of 1985. He completed basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and advanced initial training at Fort McClellan, Alabama, as a military police officer. After completing training, he was assigned to the 534th Military Police Company, Fort Clayton, Panama, and was a participant in Operation Just Cause. His next assignment was Fort Hood, Texas, assigned to the 89th Military Police Brigade, where he deployed to Saudi Arabia, for Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. After his first enlistment, Lieutenant Colonel Green branched to military intelligence and joined the 20th Special Forces Group as a voice intercept analysis. After serving 12 years as an enlisted soldier and completing his undergraduate degree, Lieutenant Colonel Green graduated from the University of Mississippi in 1998 with a Bachelor of Science in Public Administration. As the distinguished military graduate of his ROTC class, he received his commission as a second lieutenant in infantry. His first assignment as a second lieutenant was the 3rd ID, 1st Battalion, 15th Infantry Regiment. Lieutenant Colonel Green has served in Korea, has 2 tours in Iraq, 2 tours in Afghanistan, a tour in Sinai, Egypt, and his last tour was with the Special Operations Command in Africa. Lieutenant Colonel Green also has a Master's of Business and Organizational Security Management from Webster University, St. Louis, Missouri, and is a graduate of the Army's Command and General Staff Officer College, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Over his 31 years of distinguished service in the Army, Lieutenant Colonel Green has received 33 awards and recognition, to include the Ranger Tab, Expert Infantry Badge, Parachutist Badge, Air Assault Badge, Aviation Crew Badge, and Combat Action Badge. He is currently the Director of Army Flight Operations at Robins Air Force Base and is slated to report to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas as the Assistant Director of Army Doctrine in March 2017. Please help me welcome Lieutenant Colonel Green.
Well, thank y'all. I certainly appreciate being here. I'm not a beautiful singer at all, so I can't compete with that. I'm definitely not a poet, but this young lady right here definitely spoke to my heart with this lovely poem, and I certainly appreciate that. Well, distinguished visitors, guests, thank y'all. Thank y'all for allowing me to come here today. You'll discover something about me. I'm not an eloquent speaker by any chance of the imagination. I'm just an old farm boy from Mississippi, and I speak from my heart, and I speak the truth, and a lot of times that's gotten me in a little bit of trouble. So I'm actually surprised I'm where I am today. But I have to tell you, veterans, it's a sincere honor and pleasure to be with you today on our day, Veterans Day, and to share it with you. And it looks like everybody survived the election, so we're all good to go here for today. I'll tell you, I was shocked when Miss Carter called and asked me if I would be the keynote speaker for today. Actually, I thought she had the wrong phone number and was certain that she had dialed someone else. But after my shock was over, I couldn't turn this opportunity down. To be in a room with veterans like this beautiful woman right here, 102 years old, that's fantastic. And after this is over with, I'm going to come down and give both of y'all a hug, okay? So just know it's coming. So I have to also admit something else to you. This is the first time I've ever had a speaking engagement of this magnitude, so if I stumble through a lot of things, just kind of bear with me. I'm not making it up as I go. And I did take notes and write them down, but I'm sure I won't go by them at any point in time, and I'll venture off on another tangent somewhere. So for a couple of weeks, I pondered on what to say. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know. And the only thing that I could come up with is to say thank you. From one combat veteran to another veteran, thank you. Thank you guys, each and every one of y'all, for what y'all have done. It's just, I know your road has been amazing. I know your road's been amazing, and we have more roads to follow. And I'll be remiss to say that my beautiful wife, Patricia, is here with me today. She has not followed me through 31 years, but she's followed me through about 20 some odd of those years. So I appreciate her being and following and trailing behind every step of the way. It's always good to have a backup, I tell you. So, I tell you what, you guys laid a foundation for us military. And you had some huge jump boots left behind for us to fill. And brothers, let me tell you what, we're doing the best we can to get those jump boots filled, but it's a hard thing to do. And it's a hard legacy to build upon. But I tell you, everything that you guys did is where we are today. Now, whether you believe it or not, you are all giants. And I can tell you, you're giants in my eyes. It's hard to follow in the footsteps of giants. But as a military, you know the old saying, we're always continuing to improve our foxhole every chance we get. Yesterday, we had the opportunity to host the veterans of the 138th Aerial Intelligence Brigade at our unit. And one of our NCOs, Sergeant Becker, he's here with us today. And yesterday was a full day, absolutely, but it was a phenomenal day. We got the chance to actually sit down and break bread with these men and women who came before us. This unit was formed in the Vietnam War, and they left us a legacy that we had to continue. And to see the soldiers, as they sat down with these veterans and talked to them, it was just, it made my heart swell, I got to tell you. And for me to look around the room and to see those guys with those hats on, Vietnam veteran, Desert Storm veteran, the guys got the lapel pins on. I want to tell you what, it makes my heart proud. I see these two gentlemen right here with the Vietnam and Korea hats on. You guys are our heroes. I mean, you really are. You're our legacy, and we appreciate that. everyone standing behind you, when they look through that, it makes my heart proud, man. I tell you, you guys left us something Herculean, and it's resting on our shoulders too, and it's hard to keep it up, keep it balanced, but we're doing the best we can. You know, it's funny, you think you don't touch anybody during your lifetime. And I know in 31 years, you know, other than physically touching a few privates coming up through the ranks there, you know, I don't know if I really ever touched anybody, but I can tell you there's veterans that are out there that have touched my life. And it's in everything that you've ever done. And if you sit here and think about it, I mean, drill and ceremony, infantry tactics, logistics operations, medical operations, flight operations. You guys set the foundations for that. Everything that you did, no matter how minute you thought it was, we're still working at today. We're still building on it. And I can tell you, I spent a year in Africa. So we had a huge problem with logistics in Africa. How do we get beans and bullets to our guys that need it? Well, what do? We went back and we looked at how they did it in the Philippines. We looked at how they did it in Vietnam. And then we emulated what you guys did downrange, and that's how we got our guys, our beans and bullets in Africa. It was a hard task, but it was accomplished, and we had some great logistics people to do that for us, and it was amazing. I tell you, when I go on to my next assignment at Fort Leavenworth, I'll be honest with you, I'm a former action guy, so for me to sit behind a desk and drool over Army doctrine is not exactly what I'm really looking forward to doing. But what I am looking forward to it's the history part, because you guys set that history. You wrote that doctrine. So thank y'all, because y'all already done all the hard work for me, and all I got to do is just add a little bit to it as we go along. So I was thinking when I was preparing for this on all the veterans that touched my life, and I've got quite a few. I was fortunate in my family that my mother was the youngest of 9 children. And I had every uncle fought in the war, and they all came back home too, which was even more amazing. But every one of those gentlemen left me a legacy and something to build on. I had an Uncle Whit, who was a paratrooper, and he was a member of OSS. He never would tell me what he did in OSS, and I really honestly, I never asked, because I was too young to really figure it all out until later in life. But what he did do is he fueled a fire within me that jumping from an airplane while in flight had to be one of the greatest accomplishments ever known to man. And bro, let me tell you, when I got the chance to sign up for airborne school, I took it. And on every jump I had, I thought of my Uncle Whit jumped out of the airplane. He wasn't a big man, he was probably my height, so, but he was, I tell you what, he was ferocious, and being a paratrooper was one of the best things in his life, and he always talked about, and I love that fact, and I love following his footsteps as a paratrooper. I had an Uncle Max who was he was an MP after the war, and he would escort the Nazis to the trial in The Hague. One thing he would tell me is, no matter how bad you dislike someone for what they do, you still have to treat them with respect. And I thought about that, and I often pondered on that. How would you do that, considering everything that was accomplished? During my first tour in Iraq, I was in charge of interrogation operations at Abu Ghraib prison. I have to admit now, this was after the scandal, so everybody just know that. So we were sent there to help clean up what was left behind, the mess that was left behind. So to sit in an interrogation booth with probably some of the people who, you know, obviously terrorists who help orchestrate the catastrophes that happened on our soil, the terrorists who orchestrated attacks on our soldiers. You know, I thought about my Uncle Max and how if he was able to treat Nazi prisoners of war with respect, I could treat these guys with a little bit of respect too. Because I knew these guys had information that we had to have in order to save soldiers' lives. And we had to treat them with respect to get it. And in turn, we did get it. And we did save a lot of soldiers' lives. So I went on and I was sitting here and I was thinking, well, I have an Uncle Jimmy who was a United States Marine. Never an ex-Marine, ever. I learned that very young in life. You're always a former Marine. He was on the island campaign in the Pacific. He was on Bougainville Island and got injured. Pretty badly, actually. And as he shipped back to San Diego and underwent his treatment there and his medical help at the VA, and believe me, he was a staunch supporter of the VA, and so was my Uncle Whit. They spend a lot of time at the VAs offering up their volunteering their time. And I guess I should follow in their footsteps, and I will at one point in time in my life. But Uncle Jimmy, he would always tell me, he goes, no matter how bad things seem, there's always a way to make it better. And he's right, there was. I know we've been in some hard times in Iraq and Afghanistan, and there's always a way to look up and see the stars in the sky and know there's a better life, Another day's coming. Nothing that happens today I can't beat. I can always make it. So I had an Uncle Clyde who was a CB in the Pacific Islands. He came home, started a lumber company. And he would always say his motto was, hard work makes a better man. I don't necessarily think I'm a better man for working for him, but I can tell you this, I was a tired man, and I had no time to do anything else but sleep at the end of that day. Logs can get pretty heavy, let me tell you. And I slept really good at night. I had a history teacher, Mr. Bill Davis, in the little high school that I went back in Mississippi. Mr. Davis scaled the cliffs at Point de Hoc. I can't imagine the courage that took. He was also in Korea and received a battlefield commission there. Mr. Davis lost his leg during that time, but he came back home and he taught high school probably about 45 years. And the lessons that he left to generations of students are still being lived today. And you can't go back home and not mention Bill Davis's name. And Bill Davis was quite the man. And on more than one occasion, Mr. Davis, if I was cutting up in class, he would promise he was going to unscrew his leg and come back here and knock the hell out of him. And I believe that man would have definitely done it. There was no doubt. There was one point in time, it was raining, so we were playing kickball in the gym. Mr. Davis walked in and said, "Roll me the ball." So they rolled him the ball. Mr. Davis kicked it. Well, that prosthetic leg came out, I can still envision it. Going end over end. Hit the ground next to a friend of mine, Sonny. Sonny was looking at it. Mr. Davis hobbling that one leg. He goes, "Sonny, pick my leg up, bring it to me." He goes, "Oh no, Mr. Davis, I ain't touching this thing. I am not touching this." Mr. Davis hobbled over there, picked his leg, put it back on. Of course, he was cussing Sonny. He said, "Man, I can't believe you didn't pick my leg up for me." I ain't touching it. But Mr. Davis, I'll tell you what, he was a great man and a great man to emulate. My wife, her Uncle Sonny, this man, I'm going to tell you, quiet, just he had a vegetable garden, he grew for himself and for his neighbors. Uncle Sonny was a great man. He never let anybody know what he did in the war. He never saw his medals. And we were coming back, I think it was from Korea or one of our PCS moves, and we stopped in to see Uncle Sonny and visit with him for a while. Finally convinced Uncle Sonny, he said, "Let me see your medals. Let me see what you got." Good gracious. He brings out all these medals, Bronze Star, Silver Star, CID. We're just in awe. And we sat there for hours and hours, and our children were just engrossed in everything Uncle Sonny had to say. And Uncle Sonny he went down to New Orleans to the World War II museums. Anybody ever been to that museum before? If you ever get a chance to go, it's a fantastic representation of World War II. I showed a video at the very front. What was it? It was Omaha Beach. So the little docent stood up and says, "Do we have any World War II veterans in the crowd?" Well, there's a few gentlemen that stood up. Everybody applauded. Everybody sat back down. She goes, "Well, do we have any veterans here that happen to be on Omaha Beach?" Uncle Sonny stood up. He was the only one in the crowd. And Uncle Sonny tells some pretty great stories, but I tell you what, Uncle Sonny was an amazing man, and absolutely a Christian fellow, and someone in my life and my children's life that I definitely plan on emulating from now on out. Down the road from us, and I tell you, I grew up in the country, so down the road it was about 8 miles. I had James Hubert McCain, and we all called him Gunsmoke growing up. Gunsmoke was in Vietnam, and he was in the highlands of Vietnam, and he fought alongside the Montagnards. And I always remember Gunsmoke used to wear this brass bracelet on his arm, and it was from the Montagnards. And I tell you, Gunsmoke taught me a lot. He taught me how to track, and he taught me how to hunt. And I know my brothers know we never went hungry any time of the year without meat, because he showed us exactly where we could get, how to get up, when, how to track, how to stalk. And I always thank John Gunsmoke for that. But I tell you what, there was a gentleman in this community that I grew up in, Greenwood, Mississippi. It's pretty small. Mr. John Pittman. I grew up on a cattle farm and cotton farm. And Mr. Pittman, well, he was a cattleman too. And just a great man, always willing to help, always there when you needed him. There was never a time that you couldn't ask for Mr. Pittman and he wasn't always right there. Just a good Christian man, a good man to emulate. It was Veterans Day Parade in Greenwood. He was on one of the floats. He was a Medal of Honor recipient from the Korean War. We had no idea. I had no idea. I've spent hours with this man at cattle auctions and talking to him, and I mean, just very non-assuming, but just a great, great man. A guy that I really would love to emulate myself. I tell you what, every one of these veterans taught me a life lesson. And it's not just how to chew tobacco and drink whiskey, although they did a really good job on that too. But they taught me how to stand up for what I believe in. That America is the best nation in the world. That your word is your bond. And that your brother is always the guy that's fighting right next to you. I tell you, their actions and their demeanor, even though as slight as it is spoken magnitudes to me. And I know there are people you guys have touched out there, and your actions and your demeanor has spoken magnitudes to them as well. And you should pat yourselves on the back, and you should pat your family on the back. And with that, I tell you what, families have been an amazing part of our military. And they are the most unsung heroes that there ever will be. They are there, you know, wiping kids' noses when I'm down range. They're there when kids are sick. They're standing in, you know, when things are going wrong. They're taking care of everything. Finances. I don't even know what I make. My wife, she's got the power of attorney. I just let her go with it. And she has taken care of everything. I've never, ever, ever had to worry about that. Matter of fact, she did such a great job. She bought a farm in Louisiana when I was on my second deployment to Iraq. And it's a nice farm too, let me tell you. But because of your actions, we have things like the Family Readiness Group now. And if you're not familiar with that, it's one of the most phenomenal programs ever started. And it came from our veterans from Vietnam. You know, this program, when we deploy down range, we leave everything to the wives and husbands. And this Family Readiness Group, they come together, they help each other out, they're there for each other. They're their own little military. And I used to jokingly call it the SIN, the Spouses Intelligence Network, when we were over in Korea, because they always knew what was going on actually before we even did. But the families are really the unsung heroes of it all. I tell you what, I tell everyone who thinks about the military, I have nephews, you know, the military is still an honorable profession. There is nothing in this world wrong with being in the military. And I am very, very proud of the service that I have served, and especially proud of the service each of y'all have served for our nation. It's not for everybody, that's true. I've got a brother who never would have made it, and I'm glad he didn't join too. But I tell you what, it's been my honor and my privilege to be with you here today. And because of you, you've left a legacy for us to follow. And it's been a tough one, and we're still continuing to do it. We're still continuing to improve that foxhole. But I can tell you, as a combat veteran and a veteran, I would stand beside any one of you out here today and sling lead down range, because I know you're my brothers and my sisters. Well, ladies and gentlemen, soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, veterans, today is our day. A day of recognition for the service that we have given to our nation and still giving to our nation. My prayer is that God bless each of you and your families. That God blesses our military and our nation. And thank you for the privilege of being here with you today. Thank you. Thank you.
best to you work. Thank you. To my left, and to your right, up next to the platform, is something that Keith Smith does a wonderful job of recognizing and explaining to you about the POW. There's still thousands of POWs. I've got a friend, Susan Stevens, who lives in Savannah, whose brother is still missing. And almost daily, I receive an email from Susan, hoping that email will tell me that her brother has been found. But we still have thousands who are not here. Keith, back in Lincoln 17, when you come forward to do your presentation. Keith?
Once again, it's an honor and a privilege to stand before you, to be able to do the POW Remembrance Ceremony. I'd like to take just a moment, if I may, just to thank all the family, the friends, the VA staff, and especially to Dean Swan, to Gus Albritton, Ms. Morrow, and especially to my good friend here, Johnny Payne, for allowing me the opportunity to come up here and do this year after year. It is truly an honor to do it. And I would be remiss to not mention my American Legion family who supports me in this as well. And as I look around the room, there's one more thing I'd like to say. We have standing room only. We have people lining all around the building, all around this room. And what that tells me is that the Dublin, Lawrence County community and the VA Center loves us as much as we love you. For those of you who have served and are currently serving in the uniformed services of the United States, are ever mindful of the sweetness of enduring peace that has always been tainted by the bitterness of personal sacrifice. We are compelled to never forget that while we enjoy our daily pleasures, there are others who have endured and still may be enduring the agonies of pain, deprivation, and imprisonment. As we continue today's activities, we will pause to recognize our POWs and MIAs. I call attention to the small table that is to my left and your right, which occupies a place of dignity and honor. It is set for one, symbolizing the fact that members of our armed forces are missing from our ranks. They are referred to as our POWs and MIAs. We call them comrades. They are unable to be with their loved ones and their families, so we join together to pay tribute to them and to bear witness to their continued absence. The table is small, representing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his or her suppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The single rose in the vase signifies the blood that they may have shed to sacrifice to ensure the freedom of our beloved United States of America. The rose also reminds us of the family and friends who have been missing in our ranks, who keep the faith while we await their return. The red ribbon on the vase represents the red ribbons worn on the lapels of thousands who demand with unyielding determination a proper accounting of all of our comrades in arms who are not with us. The slice of lemon on the plate reminds us of their bitter fate. The salt sprinkled on the plate reminds us of the countless fallen tears of their families as they await. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us at this time. The chair is empty, for they are not here. The candle is reminiscent of the light of hope, which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home, away from their captors, to the open arms of a grateful nation. The candle is lit, symbolizing the upward reach of their unconquerable spirit. The American flag reminds us that many of them may never return, and may always